Okay. All right. So for the Connect, yeah, people are very excited, very interested in SQL and FHIR. Yeah, I talked to as many people as I could there about it, and I think most folks, don't have a great sense of what it's about. So our marketing efforts are going to be very useful. But I was definitely and hyping up our events, and they are aligned that they want to move in that direction, but we're still trying to figure out what exactly that looks like. They had a meeting this morning, the FHIR community process committee. And so I talked to Diego on Sunday. I'm sorry, yesterday morning, and then they were having a meeting this morning, and he got back to me. And the FHIR community process is very new, and it's not really clear how a non-entity, right, like a non-legal entity, becomes part of that process. So there's something for us to explore, but if there's sort of frictions or it's unable to be sort of sorted out, I think the alternative approach is something that we talked about earlier, which is FHIR Foundation, right? If you guys remember all this conversation, I don't know, 6 months ago. So still working with Diego and Graham to figure out what that next step looks like. If it's not FHIR community process, then, directionally, I think we're good. Still details to be sorted out exactly what that entails. So it's pretty broad overview, but any questions on that?
Were you discussing the conference or the working group status?
I think both, and the spec itself too. So it's kind of all encompassing. For the spec,
maybe it works to decomplex.
yeah, it's fair. I'll just go through them in a little bit more detail. For the spec itself, we'll need to make some modifications to the canonical URL. Graham suggested pointing to under FHIR.org, hosting it under, the canonical URLs under FHIR.org. I'll post a ticket explaining that. We have to clear up some of the legal indica on there because I think we have an incorrect copyright statement. One technical thing is that we have to look at the QA report. We looked at it, I want to say 6 months ago, and just confirmed that any errors in the QA report, which I think there are some, we document properly. So from a spec perspective, there's some, logistical stuff, some, legal documentation stuff. And I did tell them that we would host it under a neutral, some kind of neutral. We have SQLandFHIR.org. I was talking with, I think, one of the Health Samurai folks, the marketing folks, and I was like, oh, well, we should have FHIRanalytics.org because that would be more of a broader umbrella over SQL and FHIR and, potentially sub-projects. So I purchased that so that's available to use as well. So that's kind of the spec aspect. The group aspect, I think, is a little less clear. Again, it's not a formal working group, sort of a collective. I don't think we want to form anything particularly more formal unless we really, really have to, because that would, entail costs and, logistical overhead. So that's the group. And then for the event, Bashir's made this point, we'd like to have some formality or some officialness to the meeting, some from HL7. That's what we're trying to figure out, because there's sort of a urgency to figure some of this out such that the event can have a kind of FHIR endorsement, if not from the community process, potentially from the FHIR Foundation. So all those things are in flight. I think there's more clarity on what we need to change for the spec, but we're really focused on getting the event straightened out and making having some kind of final clarity on that. Graham is pretty busy this week, I think, with working group meetings, but I'll be meeting up with him likely next week.
Good. Yeah. So let's find the right configuration for the event and the working group as well.
Okay. Yeah, I'll keep working on that, and please, anybody, reach out to me. It shouldn't be just a solo project for me. Now that I'm discussing the broad issues broadly, I think what we could do potentially is move forward with the planned marketing for the event in terms of, having it hosted under FHIRanalytics.org, the design and content that we've been discussing already, and then add the endorsement. Maybe we just go with what we have here. We can, I'm sure, use the FHIR trademark is not a problem, but then add any kind of endorsement. How does that sound to you guys?
Yeah, I like it. Let's do this.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there was obviously it was failing on one of my changes, so it was actually throwing exceptions. I had to fix that one, which is still under review. I think Graham has been busy, but once that is merged, I can submit my change as well. But still, there are a lot of warning level errors that you will see in the QA.html, which are, most of them. I have added some to-dos about fixing them in the validation tool, but I haven't fixed
Okay, I think here we have to me, this is like a documentation step. And so if you've already taken a pass at that, have you documented it in like QA.html or in like tickets against the validator? Just so I understand.
Is the HTML is actually published? I'm not sure. Because I have a
It
local
is.
version. Oh, it is? Okay. Yeah, okay. I mean, I can add documentation for it in the repo. Pointing out that, these are things that are actually marked incorrectly by the validation tool.
Yeah, I think that's the best next step. And then, just communicate that out to the channel so other folks can join in that effort.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I wasn't aware that, it's actually in the, published in the FHIR.org page. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So trying to think if there's anything else when it comes to that. In terms of the event, we have, I believe, topics and descriptions from everyone. So I think that's set up. And Bashir, I think you are, I don't know where you're at in terms of, a decision to be a part of it, but definitely open to that.
Yeah, most likely I will. I mean, in a day or two, I'll just give you the final confirmation. But most likely, I will.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, just wanted to make sure that that's the case. So I think we have clarity on the participants, work a little bit on the agenda and, helping people get ready. But other than that, I think we seem to be in pretty good shape. I'll start to kick off marketing efforts for it. Any thoughts from you, Nikolai, on that? Outstanding to-dos for the event.
No, let's start doing this. So whenever Bashir ready, whenever we decide on which site we're gonna publish, and let's start marketing as soon as possible.
Okay, yeah, I know we're running out of time, so we gotta keep this moving.
By the way, did we decide on the date? I mean, I just voted today. Sorry, but yeah.
I looked at the voting today, and I pinged a couple of folks who didn't vote.
Okay.
So I can check on the voting later today.
Okay.
All right. Sounds good. I think I'm trying to think if there's anything else from me. No, then our community process can take a look at that. John is out this week. So he was on track to tag branch, but we have a couple of edits to spec, which I will note in tickets. We talked about the domain, talked about voting.
Yeah, John was planning like make a build of the release doing this.
Yeah.
GitHub Actions, so it's built, and I will configure the domain. I don't know, but if we decide like switch to FHIR Foundation, FHIR org for Canonicals, so let's see. Because it's better to host on the same domain as Canonicals, I think. So eventually we can like make URLs to resolve to real pages, kind of good practice.
Yeah. So Graham said
the first time that this didn't happen, URL.
Right. Graham controls FHIR.org, so he would have to.
Yeah, maybe we can ask for subdomain or something like this, or at least like I don't know if Graham have Nginx, so we can ask for folder for us or something like this, so we can kind of have sub control of our.
Okay. In the time being, make that change and then work on the build. And yeah, Nikolai, are you okay with using FHIRanalytics.org as the
For the conference or for the spec?
It could be for both.
Yeah, let's decide. I'm okay. So I think probably SQL on FHIR sounds a little bit better for the hosting spec, and analytics on FHIR sounds good for conference because it's broader than just SQL on FHIR.
Yeah, I think that's fine too. And okay, why don't we go with that? All right, then you won't need anything from me. I'll make any modifications needed to the DNS entries for the conference. I'll work with Daniil on that. Right. The only other thing is, I'm just looking at the old to do, and we're talking about subgroups and next steps. I'm assuming not much has happened there from the team. Carl had a couple to dos outstanding to work on a date. The Vulkan set up a new repo home, so we don't have Carl or John, so I think we'll have to table those. I certainly don't have any updates on them.
Yeah, with John's some kind of integration, and probably Bashir, we can schedule meeting maybe during the month, so and talk to how we can integrate with your tools as well, just for showcase how the different tools can be integrated. Yeah, so we're quite close to that.
Yeah, and I was thinking that we might have, if folks want, review sessions of folks' presentations and things like that, just to go through them, have somebody to listen to them, give any feedback people want. So that could be something helpful to the presenters. Maybe we should maybe we should make a first slide, like a title slide for folks. That's consistent. That could be nice. Could ask the Health Samurai team to mock that up. It's like a real conference.
Yeah, let's shape it.
Now we're gonna get into we're gonna be Yeah, conference companies. Yeah, so many. It's funny. Yeah. Anything else from you guys? I'm trying to think if there's anything else I'm missing.
I don't know, Bashir, do you know there was idea that you will have in Google another implementation which will work with a big query, like queries into big, like a view definition into big queries. Do you know what's going on with this project? Is it frozen or?
So Ryan knows the latest status of that, but my understanding is that it hasn't been progressed significantly over the last few months.
Just waiting. Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, Ryan is the best person to ask. So that approach is similar to, I think, your approach and Atlink's approach, which is basically translating the new definition into BigQuery queries.
Yeah, because we still thinking about like open sourcing this Postgres part, when I think it shouldn't be only Postgres, yes, so we can just make multiple dialects after that.
Right.
So I play it a lot with DuckDB now. It's still it's nice, but very buggy piece of software.
Well, yeah, did I mention that? I did an evaluation a few months ago. But I don't know if I mentioned that or not. I mean, this is actually on our repo. It's a Jupyter notebook in our repo. And when you have like non-flat views, non-flat tables in Parquet, its performance actually is really, really bad.
It works until some degree, but when you start doing lateral joins, so they start like becoming very slow. I don't know what's going on inside. I think Dan reported this bug to the DuckDB guys. So if you use filters and lambdas, it may work quite fast in DuckDB, but when you switch to lateral joins, it like degrade like 5 or 10 times the overall performance. Yeah, there's a lot of gaps.
Yeah, I was going to mention because I know Dan is working on DB-based infrastructure. So, and then with SQL, like a compiler to SQL, based on DuckDB. So that's going to be he's.
Let's see, because this is the rabbit hole.
But wait, is he working on? So is the idea to have the? So what's the source of the data? Because I mean, the way that we do it in like BigQuery or for Spark, I don't think in case of Postgres as well.
Yeah.
So is this that is the FHIR resources as JSON or are they as that wide?
I think then using like this conversion of FHIR JSON to internal representation, like so you can load ND-JSON into DuckDB, yes, but it will be converted into I don't know, something like Parquet or like I forgot the name of big coding. Yeah.
That you're right. Like I mean, when you are dealing with JSON, it's a completely like a different like dialect type of kind of thing. You want to deal with JSON, like you have JSON specific things in SQL.
But I think the more idiomatic in DuckDB, like say that I create table from ND-JSON, and then it's not JSON internally. It is more like Parquet representation. So you can like quickly import ND-JSON into DuckDB, but internal representation is very similar to what's going on in Spark and in BigQuery.
So it does some schema inference then, right?
Yeah, it does schema inference. It does a lot of problem with this schema inference. And so now I'm sitting and fighting with this. I don't know, sometimes it's just casting to something strange like, but but it does schema inference very close to what Spark doing with a kind of similar errors. So it is very similar to what Spark doing. And it's quite efficient. So when it's successful, so it like the same size as the exhibit ND-JSON on the disk, and some operations are quite fast in DuckDB. So
well, yeah, I mean, but the problem is, and this is probably a topic for another discussion, but the problem is that when you infer a schema from your input, then your schema is always incomplete.
Yeah.
And then the queries that you write against that schema may not run on another inference.
Yeah, that's true. That's and there's a lot of problem with this inference, yes, because they're usually using like sampling,
right.
And when it fails, you're in trouble. Yes, when something wrong, so then you're in real trouble when the schema is not inferenced. And I think this is close to the topic about Parquet. Yes, because like to decide how it should work and understand how technology may work with that.
Right.
It'll definitely be very interesting to hear where Dan gets to and the conversation across.
Let's see how it goes.
Spark, Parquet, and Duck. It's interesting. I mean, it is the new hotness when it comes to databases. A lot of people are excited about it and using it. Particularly. So I'm curious about it too. So I'm really excited to see what folks are doing with it.
That's really interesting. I will started playing with And the ClickHouse is more mature than the DuckDB, so it's like more than 10 years, I think. I don't know, Bashir, have you tried ClickHouse?
No, I have heard about it several times, but I have.
It was developed by Russian Google, which is called Yandex, but they like separated into like separate projects.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And they use it for the like, they have a similar service like Google Analytics, like call it Yandex Metrics, and it is powered by this database, battle proofed, and they open sourced it. And I know a lot of smart guys who are implementing this. So, and this is, I think this is like open source Vertic version. It is not so easy to use like DuckDB, so there's some like a lot of explicit stuff, but it is very advanced. And it is really quite mature. So, and we, for example, considering as a default option for like some open source efficient stuff, because it's still, still don't like Spark a lot because it's not the like most efficient part, like implementation possible. So I think like, the ClickHouse may be like open source efficient columnar database.
Yeah, it's definitely on my to-do at some point to try. Just do something like a similar experiment that the one that I did with DuckDB. I want to
it may work with the Parquet. So it's very close by features to the DuckDB. So it understands Parquet. It even has some experimental JSON support.
Sure.
And that's on my list as well. So I will report when I have some success with it.
Right. I have to go, but
I think we finished. Yes, so not so much topics today to discuss.
Okay. So I'll review and just post any of the to-dos and keep you guys updated on how things are progressing.
Yeah, cool.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Good day. Ciao.